That was raining good last night.
Sorry?
It was raining good last night. It came down.
Oh, man.
How are things down in Pullman?
Not wet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were Pullman. I go back to Colfax.
Maybe I stand a little
I
bit.
grew up in Vancouver.
Would that help too?
Like,
I don't know.
I've seen rain.
Yeah.
I have not
That
seen
might
rain
be
like
better.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we just give you an overview and then we'll take questions, or does that work? Or
Yeah, that was. Sorry, Dave.
Am I too much noise? Shut this one off.
Where's this?
Oh, you need it on here.
Oh, no!
I'm running out of room.
I know. It'd be well microphone. Work at this. Is that just?
Yep. Take that. Almost it. Perfect. You're good. Okay, check. We all like that?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, fire came in 4:07 this morning. First crews got here just a few minutes later. They're just down the street. Engine 15 arrived, and fire was well involved by the time we got here. Actually, neighbors called it in, and when they called in, they already had smoke and flames visible. So well advanced fire. As we know, this place is a battery. They receive batteries, and they come in these little lithium-ion battery packs, much like your Teslas and everything. They're just little small batteries, but they build those together into a battery pack. And so they have a lot of these little batteries, and then they build them into the packs. And a lot of this stuff goes off to sounds like for drones and such. But with these lithium batteries, once they get involved with fire, we've seen that. It's still a fairly new problem to us in the fire service, but we're starting to see that more nationwide, having these battery fires turn into bigger events. And that's what's happened here today. This is technically this is the largest event we've had with batteries in the city for sure, maybe in the state, but still fairly low overall from what we've seen nationwide. But those batteries, kind of the risk with that is that when they get involved with fire, they're really hard to put out. And so that's something we're kind of learning as a fire service and working with ecology. And some of these, down the road, it might be, do we let these burn or we put it out? We're still kind of figuring that out. Still new to us. But this one, we had some other, the home just to the north was threatened initially. A lot of embers were dropping on that property, so we evacuated that. And so that was kind of, for us, surround it, try to keep it contained within the facility and keep it from spreading. So that was the tactics here this morning. That all went well. Other than that, it's just, like I said, surround and drown. We had some collapse, fairly early on. That took out the gas meter earlier. You probably saw some of those flames. So we had the gas company down here. They had to dig up in the street to shut that valve off. But that was probably, like I said, when the collapse came, that probably knocked over that meter. Other than that, it's been fairly, the winds today, for us, it's actually fairly good that we had these winds. That gets that smoke up out of here, dilutes it just like it is in, water. It just dilutes it and gets it out of here. So we've the concern with that, with these off gases of these metals and such, is just that contamination. So for us, this is going to be big decontamination on our end with our equipment, all our bunker gear, all our bottles, all our hoses. Everything's got to get really clean. But with that too, we took this evacuation area all the way up to Francis with the winds in that direction. We've since, with the Department of Ecology, done some air monitoring, and we decided that we're going to peel that level back just to the perimeter of the building. So I won't get into that. Yeah, that's kind of.
You have repealed the evacuation?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's to the perimeter of the building now.
Okay, perfect.
So with the exception of the one house is going to be, we've got 3 people living in the house just north of here. They're going to be probably displaced for a few days, and they've been provided service with Red Cross. So it sounds like there's 3 adults there, but just because of that, this would be an ongoing incident. We'll be here probably through the night with the fire department, and then Department of Ecology, I imagine, will be here for a few more days. I'll talk more about that, yeah.
Obviously with these lithium batteries, I know when Spokane Citywide was doing that Battery Smart campaign, like this was a
big, talking point just this summer. What they can do and the damage obviously they cause. And when they do catch fire, they kind of act as a fuel source. Is that correct? And I mean, how do you put them out? Is it water? Is it foam? I mean, how are you able to contain these flames?
Yeah, we're working on that, like I said, but at this point it's been water. There are some places they're using like blankets to kind of smother it, but the problem with these batteries, you can get the fire out, and sometimes for 2 or 3 days or even longer. I'll let Sean speak to that, but these things can pop back up. So it'll be a while before we get in there, and obviously Department of Ecology will get in there with us, but we haven't had any batteries go off for a while now, so I'm guessing we're probably hopefully through that portion of the fire.
I mean, you mentioned that the wind has been helpful to kind of move out of the smoke, but how have the other elements been helpful, or have they been hindering?
It's really not. I mean, the environmental factors other than that wind kind of actually helping us a little bit, get that smoke out here and dilute it. There really hasn't been too many other environmental factors this morning.
And then do you know how much of their stockpile is now not burned?
Oh, I think they're completely destroyed. Yeah, will be a loss. Building and contents. There might be a few things in the office they can salvage, paperwork and stuff, but I think most everything's going to be destroyed. Yeah.
We still don't know the official cause.
No, it's under investigation. These ones can be difficult sometimes. The building was unoccupied through the night, and then by the time it got alerted, we got alerted to it as well involved. So sometimes those are hard, but it's under investigation currently. Yeah. No injuries. I don't know if I said that. No injuries. That's good.
So next steps, like you said, for the fire department really is to, all of the equipment used out here really got through a heavy decontamination process.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So all of our firefighters' gear, they all have 2 sets. So everything they wore here today will go back to station. It'll get bagged up, cleaned. All the hoses come off, has to get cleaned. The rig, every apparatus, inside, outside, has to get cleaned. So it's a solid day or more of cleanup now for us.
How many people did you have in hazmat suits?
That I don't know. The hazmat team's down here now, and they'll be here for a while. They were kind of helping with that air monitoring, determining the evacuation zone. So I imagine we'll get them in sight, in the building here. It's still collapsing with these winds and stuff, so it'll probably be a while before we get anybody in there, including investigators.
Okay. What are the risks for firefighters when they're dealing with these types of specific lithium-ion battery fires?
Yeah, we're still learning that. We're still learning some of that, but obviously the fire that it adds, once these start burning, I mean, plenty of videos out there. They're quite explosive. We've been to fires even here in town where the batteries end up a block away, when they start taking off. So there's the risk of explosion and that projectile, but just that increase in the fuel load and that fire behavior that we get with these.
Is there a different health risk though for the firefighters in terms of those emissions?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, it's another layer of risk with the smoke. There's always, everything nowadays is plastics, right? So I tell everybody, stay out of the smoke as much you can when you're on these things. It's just bad stuff. We don't even know what's all in there. So our cancer rates are really high. This is just another level of, now we got this battery thing and we're not quite sure. The data's still coming out, but at this point we're still used to using our regular gear. That seems to be, and Sean can probably talk a little more about this, but that seems to be adequate at this time for us, at least for that initial firefighting phase. But anything kind of extended, you'll see them in their suits, yeah.
Do you know how long it took to get it contained this morning?
Yeah, it was a couple hours. I mean, before.
And no worry of it reigniting, no risk?
Well, they always do with these batteries. That's what, yeah, there certainly is. I don't know how long that risk, Sean can probably help with that a little bit more, but certainly that's got to be a concern now for a few days.
Did you get any reaction of residents, any concerns, like besides the main calls, but just after the evacuation?
No, I think just people wanting to get back in their businesses and stuff. So it sounds like most of them are back in now. So that's always important to us. You want to keep those businesses moving, but make sure they're not breathing in stuff too that's going to kill them. So.
Do we know the number of businesses or homes? I know it's kind of a problem.
Yeah, just the one home that's evacuated now. Businesses wise, less than 5.
Okay. So
Yeah.
for one home, 3 people.
Yeah.
Probably going to be displaced for a few days.
Probably a few days, yeah, while the cleanup continues.
And in terms of the health impact, there's no reason at this point for the public to be concerned at all that they might be impacted by the contamination from this fire.
We're going to say no, yeah. I think we're feeling pretty safe with that. Like I said, the air is the biggest thing for us. And then now, Department of Ecology will come in and they'll look at the runoff and the groundwater, that kind of stuff. So, but the initial health risk is the air, and that's been Yeah.
I think a big part of this too, big takeaway with these lithium-ion batteries, they can cause significant damage, even if that wasn't caused by a battery in here, but them catching fire. So safety as always.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier, but I think that Battery Smart Spokane is a good local resource. We kind of put that together this last year. It's a coalition of agencies in the county, kind of looking at this saying, hey, we've got a problem, and how do we get some education out there? So that really has some really good hands for purchasing the right battery, the right chargers, how to safely charge those at home and store them, and then dispose of them. So there's kind of 3 parts of a battery life that we need to pay attention to. So good resources there. Yeah.
I don't think we have on record yet. Do we know the name of this company?
Amp. Max Amps.
Max Amps. How do we spell
It's
that?
MAX and then capital A MPS.
Okay. Do we know, have they had any issues in the past with stuff like this?
Not sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you think we missed?
I don't think so.
Perfect.
It's our big stuff.
I know a person, you might not know this, but a person earlier told me that the owner of this building is actually out of state, and this building they rent out for the production of these batteries. I don't know if you know any.
Yeah, not sure. I know the owner of the business, at least. We've been in contact with him this morning, so not sure
Okay.
about the building.
Do you know how many employees they might have had?
Not sure. Yeah.
Okay.
We
Cool.
can switch the mics.
All right.
We're out. Thank you.
Yes, you bet. I'm just gonna hand you the whole mess, Sean.
We all are also live right now, still, so just a heads up.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
They're all. Mine has a weird clip, which is.
Thank you.
Here. And there we go.
This one I will take. So.
Here, babe. You got it.
Using my reach.
No, you're fine.
Oh, now it
How many
mess.
recorders does it take to put on the
Wires.
out of it.
Yeah, see, you're smart. Yeah.
I'm gonna go right up here. Onto. Take it right in there.
We'll do.
Whatever works best for you.
Yeah. We're gonna pass that guy off.
And then can we have them stand maybe a little bit more so?
Yeah,
that way?
we can move
That'd be
Yeah,
work
that-
for
that
you,
works.
maybe
Yeah,
even,
I
more
might
so
go
the
back to
background of that.
Yeah, we can.
Thank you. All right.
Okay.
And I think we'll have you maybe stand more so over here.
Yeah.
Different angle.
Next to the bigger pile of trash.
There, I can see you.
Go on the other side? Yeah, that's fine.
Over there, yeah.
We can shift this way and I'll stand on this side.
Switch sides, that way we're not.
Okay, we good?
Yeah, that's great.
It's like 30 seconds here. Whew.
It is.
Warm?
It's like getting colder, I think.
Yeah.
It's a little warmer at 4 o'clock this morning than even now.
It's not sub-zero anymore.
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah. Yeah, spring's coming.
Yeah. According to Punxsutawney.
Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna adjust my mic real quick. Just
Yeah,
get a little
absolutely.
wind. I'm gonna try to make sure we hear you, not the wind.
Yeah, no problem. Hopefully I don't start into a coughing fit. I'm fighting the same thing I think everybody else is these days. You're okay?
Since everybody's
Since we're making a swap.
Adjusting it.
Yeah.
All right. You guys rolling?
You guys,
Okay.
you good?
Yeah. The hardest question, if you could just say and spell your name for us.
Sure. My name is Sean Thompson, SeanThompson.
What's your role?
So I am a hazmat or spill responder for Washington State Department of Ecology.
Okay, I guess we can start off. What are the environmental concerns, lasting impact? Also, is the water or soil a concern around the area?
Yeah, these are all the big questions, right? And these are the same reasons why, you know, Spokane Fire's been such a great partner in engaging us on these kind of incidents. You know, they're all fears of ours, and there's not a lot of information that's out there currently on these topics. And so we've been, you know, working through a lot of these questions, but, you know, ultimately we can manage these things the same way we do everything else. Runoff on this site specifically has been maintained to the site, so we know that it's contained to the property. It's not leaving the site. You know, these are all things that we do initially on a scene when we show up. Initial observations to make sure that we're not hitting storm drains, those kind of things. So there is a concern. Luckily, with this site, like I said, you know, none of the water that's been used for suppression has left the site. It's been able to be kept on site. But there is a concern. You know, we're not real sure what all is in the water, and as a result of these fires and of these batteries. This is a new thing even for us that we're up against. As an agency, you know, we're asking a lot of those same questions, and so we're just trying to do our due diligence to make sure that we're monitoring that, we're testing that to the best of our ability. With this site specifically, the fact that it all stayed on the site, ultimately this project or this incident will transition over to a environmental cleanup contractor, and they'll do testing, and we'll work with them to determine the limits for what the remediation limits for the soils or any of the other contamination on the site, as well as management of the waste that's coming off the site.
So 3 or 4 years ago, there was a pretty massive fire regarding Lime bikes because of lithium-ion batteries. What did the Department of Ecology learn from that incident, and how did they apply it today?
I really couldn't speak specifically to that incident. I don't know if you guys remember, we had a Home Depot incident. I think it was about a year after that, and that was one that really kickstarted a lot of work that we've spent the last 2 solid years with Spokane Fire working towards these same questions. Exact same questions you're asking me now. What's in the smoke? What's in the water? What's the gear contamination? All those things that you would expect an answer to, thinking that you could find that nationally at some level, and it's just not there. So since that incident, not specifically the Lime incident, you know, we've been working very closely, not only with Spokane Fire, but other fire districts and at the state level with our state fire marshal's office to try and focus in on those topics. So between testing that we've done both at Spokane Fire and at other facilities to try and make the determinations as far as gear contamination, what that looks like, what the decontamination looks like for that gear, what are the impacts, what's in the water runoff, and we've learned quite a bit, right? This morning, during this fire, and even post with the suppression efforts that they have now, we've been monitoring the water to make sure there's no initial shifts in the pH. Even though it's not leaving the site, we still want to make sure that there's nothing that's shifting out of balance with it. As far as the air impacts, the specific gases that we would expect to see from a lithium-ion fire, Spokane Fire hazmat team has made solid investments in technology specific to look for those gases, equipment that you wouldn't see on every fire truck or anywhere else, really on this side of the state. And so tools that have better prepared them for incidents like this to be able to do that, like the assessment they did this morning, to be able to say definitively whether or not they're seeing an impact on or off the property. So we proactively, partnering with Spokane Fire and partnering with our fire districts here in Spokane County and across this side of the state, and even statewide, really, like, there's been a big push to this question, and we're learning something new on every one of these incidents that we're involved in and that we're on.
Talking about numbers, were the gases at a certain number at all?
For what we saw, especially with that equipment, there was no detects that we saw. The initial concern when there's smoke coming off and you don't have a meter there to be able to read it, you treat it like it's there. And that was the initial response from the incident command with the evacuations and trying to pull people out, because until they could confirm that they weren't seeing those impacts, that's why they would focus in on that, and that's really the go-to.
Kind of a two-part question with that. Spokane Fire has this technology. It sounds like, if they didn't, we've not gotten an answer for a few days if they haven't been safe.
Really, the biggest focus then would have been, you falling back on the technology that we do have and trying to, but at the same time being able to say whether we are seeing impacts to the community. It would have been a harder answer. What it probably would have meant is those evacuation zones would have been stretched out further and or for a longer period of time. And so being able to have that technology is what allows them to be able to collapse that zone as fast as they can.
Fortunately, this investment really
Oh, absolutely.
process
Yes.
what, deeming this area.
Absolutely. In my role, I cover eastern, everything from the Cascades this way in eastern Washington, and having resources like that, they're not available everywhere, and so it's really to benefit. I mean, Spokane, the city as a whole, like Justin was saying earlier, with the outreach that they've done with the lithium-ion safe programs and everything else, it's been very beneficial and moved us forward. We're just, like everyone else across the country, we're at the same place trying to answer these questions and move forward with it.
In layman's,
No. You go.
in layman's terms, just bringing it back to basics for our viewers at home. When does the spill team take over? Like, can you just like an
Well,
elementary
yeah,
level,
so-
what do you guys actually?
For ecology, for us, the focus is ensuring, we work on behalf of the people of the state of Washington. Our job is to ensure that the resources of the state of Washington are made whole in the event of a spill or in the event of an accident. That's our real focus. So in this situation, on this incident, we're here to help at a technical level and as an advisory to the incident command and to bring whatever tools we might have to the incident. But ultimately, this incident has been managed all the way through by Spokane Fire. This has been there from the start to the finish. But on a spill, a truck wreck or a hazmat spill, something of that nature, and even in this situation, we'll work with the property owner to help them better understand what are the needs as far as remediation and cleanup for the if there's for an environmental impact, and then also help them with the process of meeting those state and federal guidelines for the actual disposal of these damaged lithium-ion batteries and things, so we don't wind up seeing them later down the road in a transfer center or somewhere else where they could cause another fire or anything else.
Obviously, this is still under investigation. We don't know the cause of the fire, but say potentially this company or a company similar to it, if the batteries weren't being stored properly or there was some kind of regulation that they weren't following, could there be potential repercussions for this company?
Yeah, ultimately, and it's interesting. So it's it's in two different worlds. That would ultimately fall to fire, for our fire marshal's office, Spokane Fire's fire marshal's office, to be able to manage that. All those kind of components are listed in the state fire codes. That's where all that falls back to, and even some of those codes are catching up. This is a very new thing to a lot of folks. It's it's a technology that we've all adapted very quickly because it fits our lives so well. It's a part of everything we do.
Timeline-wise, you're going to be out here for a few more days with some testing.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye. The Spokane Fire is working to make sure that the building's no longer smoldering. They're making sure that there's not a fire watch to make sure it doesn't spark back up or anything else like that. Really, for us, this being contained to the property is a blessing, in the sense that it allows it all to stay in one spot, so we don't have it migrating or moving around. We'll like I said, from here at this point, we'll work with the property owner to try and help guide them and assist them as far as the cleanup and what that process looks like, and ultimately, to be completely honest with you, to also learn from it. This is still we don't have this nailed down, and we don't have a written process for this at this point, and so we want to gather as much as we can, so that way we can apply it to other incidents, other fires, things as we move forward in the future.
Just to circle back on one thing,
Sure.
so I understand, because I don't think I asked this question as clearly as I should have. So are your teams right now more of an advisory to SFD versus they're actually doing work cleaning up?
Correct. And that, if there was runoff leaving the property, impacting a storm drain, going to the river, impacting waters of the state, then that would be a place where we would have stepped in even further. But ultimately, right now, it's really just to support Spokane Fire as they manage the incident and until they hand it off to the responsible party.
And so it will stay in their hands then until
Yes.
And by response, so it would be the owners who would be hiring the cleanup.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Is there a timeline in terms of after the investigation they have to start cleanup right away, or is that up to the owner?
Well, I mean, it's not well defined, because lithium-ion batteries aren't something that those impacts aren't something the state has rules on very specific things. So if there was an impact to the soil from oil, it's 90 days. Impact to water, it's immediate. There are very specific rules, but in this situation, those are things that we're still piecing together. Ultimately, that cleanup, as long as it's staying on their property, I mean, it would be a safety thing more so than anything else at this point, just simply because the structure's in the shape that it's in right now.
Anything else you think we missed?
No, you guys think these are really great questions.
Justin, you might know this. Do you know if there's how many other buildings are like this in the city that do maybe a similar thing? Do we know?
No, I don't. And
Okay.
I'm not even sure if this one was on our radar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's stuff we'll have to look into.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. We are good. Yeah, I think we're good. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys
Thank
bet.
you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll let you do this, and I won't.
Let's see. I gotta make sure I
tie
grab
any
the right.